Most people think you're quiet. They think you're shy. They assume you just don't know what to say, but the truth is, you're not quiet. You're just tired. Tired of conversations that feel empty. Tired of asking, "How are you?" and hearing the same automatic answer. Tired of talking about the weather, traffic, or what someone ate for lunch. Because deep down, you crave something else, something real. You want to know what people actually think at 2 a.m. You want to know what they're afraid of, what they dream about, what keeps them awake at night, and sometimes you wonder, why do I feel so different? Why do small conversations drain me so much, while deep ones feel like oxygen? Picture this. You're sitting with a group of people. The room is full of noise. Someone is talking about a new phone they bought. Another person is complaining about their boss. Someone laughs about a random meme they saw online. Everyone is talking, but somehow you feel alone. You try to join the conversation, you smile, you nod, you say a few things, but inside, your mind is somewhere else. You want to ask questions like, what do you actually want to do with your life? What scares you the most? Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be someone you're not? But those questions feel too heavy for the moment. So you stay quiet. And people think you're the silent one. But what they don't see is that your mind is full of conversations, just not the kind everyone else is having. Here's something most people never realize. People who prefer deep conversations aren't antisocial. They're not awkward, and they're definitely not boring. In fact, their minds are usually more active than anyone else in the room. They notice things other people ignore. They think about meaning, purpose, emotions, patterns. They analyze situations long after everyone else has moved on. Their brain isn't looking for noise, it's looking for depth, and small talk rarely gives them that. Pause for a moment and think about this. When was the last time you had a conversation that made you feel understood? Not entertained, not distracted, understood. A conversation where someone looked at you and said something that felt almost too accurate, something that made you stop and think, wait, how did they know that? For people who crave deep conversations, those moments are rare. But when they happen, they feel unforgettable. The reason some people avoid small talk has a lot to do with how their mind processes the world. Most conversations are designed to be safe. Surface level topics, neutral opinions, nothing too emotional, nothing too personal. Because for many people, conversation is just social glue. It keeps interactions comfortable. But for someone who naturally thinks deeply, that kind of interaction can feel exhausting. It's like reading a book where every page says the same sentence. Your brain wants the story, but all it gets is repetition. And this is where something interesting happens. People who prefer deep conversations often start feeling like outsiders, not because they want to be different, but because their curiosity moves in a different direction. While others ask, what do you do for fun? They wonder, what kind of person do you want to become? While others talk about celebrities or trends, they think about human behavior, life choices, regrets, purpose. Their mind naturally searches for meaning, even in ordinary moments. But here's the part that most people don't talk about. Wanting deep conversations can sometimes feel lonely because depth requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is something many people avoid. Think about it. It's easy to talk about sports, it's easy to talk about movies, but it's much harder to say, I'm scared I'm wasting my life, or I don't feel like I belong anywhere, or I'm not sure who I really am yet. Those kinds of conversations require honesty, and honesty can feel uncomfortable, so people stay on the surface. That's why people who crave depth often feel a strange mix of emotions. They enjoy solitude, but they also long for connection. Not casual connection, real connection. The kind where silence isn't awkward, the kind where conversations drift into philosophy, memories, fears, dreams, the kind where hours pass and no one checks the time. Here's a small moment that might sound familiar. You meet someone new. At first, the conversation is normal: names, jobs, where you're from. But then something changes. Maybe they ask a deeper question. Maybe they share a personal story. Maybe they say something unexpectedly honest, and suddenly, the conversation becomes alive. Time disappears. Your mind wakes up. You feel curious, interested, present, because now the conversation has depth. And in that moment, you realize something important. It was never about talking more, it was about talking meaningfully. Pause for a second and reflect on this. How many conversations in your life actually felt meaningful? Not polite, not necessary, meaningful. The answer might be surprisingly small, but those few conversations probably stayed with you for years. People who prefer deep conversations often carry another hidden trait. They are highly observant, they notice tone changes, body language, the small pauses between words. They can sense when someone is pretending to be okay, even when everyone else believes the smile. This awareness can make them incredibly empathetic, but it also means they process emotional information constantly, which is another reason small talk can feel tiring. Their brain is searching for authenticity, not performance. There's also a quiet courage behind deep conversations, because asking meaningful questions takes risk. You never know how someone will respond. Some people might open up, others might shut down, and sometimes you'll realize that the person you're talking to doesn't want to go deeper. Not because they don't like you, but because depth makes them uncomfortable. And that realization can be disappointing. But here's the twist: preferring deep conversations isn't a weakness, it's a signal that your mind values meaning over noise, that you care about understanding people, not just interacting with them. In a world filled with endless scrolling, notifications, and surface level distractions, depth has become rare, which means people who crave it are often misunderstood, but they are also the ones who create the most meaningful connections. Think about the people who changed your life, the ones you remember years later. They probably weren't the loudest, they weren't the most entertaining. They were the ones who asked the questions that mattered, the ones who listened longer than expected, the ones who made you feel seen. And if you're someone who prefers deep conversations, you might have spent years thinking something was wrong with you. Maybe people called you too serious. Maybe they said you overthink everything. Maybe they told you to lighten up. But what if the problem was never your depth? What if the real issue was simply that you hadn't met enough people who think the same way? Because when two people who love deep conversations meet, something powerful happens. There's no pressure to perform, no need for fake enthusiasm, no need to fill silence with random words. The conversation just flows. Thoughts become stories, stories become ideas, ideas become understanding, and suddenly you don't feel different anymore. You feel understood. So if you've ever felt out of place in surface level conversations, if you've ever stayed quiet because the discussion felt meaningless, if you've ever wished people would talk about the things that actually matter, there's nothing wrong with you. Your mind simply searches for something deeper. And that depth is exactly what allows real connections to exist in the first place.